Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Today we have a request. Cassigil asked if we could do a video on the Seraphon strategy for Bastiladon. So that's what we're looking at today is the Bastiladon. We've previously looked at why it has a one-up save and how we can do that. I'll try to link that below. You can watch that if you want more information on its one-up save and what it can do. Today we're going to be looking at damage output, how we can increase that, and maybe some lists that we can take it into. So let's get started on the Bastiladon. It does have 10 wounds now. It got changed. It got a few more wounds. It doesn't have a ward save anymore. So talking back about how the old Bastiladon versus the new one, there are some important changes. So it's not as tough against mortal wounds, but it is a lot tougher against normal saves, armor saves. So if you notice here on its war scroll, it does have a 1-up save as its base save. And so that does create some interesting situations. Basically, as a short summary of what that means is only natural ones fail on its save roll. So it has a 1-up save. No matter what the rend is going to be, only natural ones will fail until you bracket it. So once you put some mortal wounds on it, then it'll start taking rend and it'll start taking some more damage. Again, we have a video on that will go into details on all that kind of stuff. But let's look at what kind of damage output it can do. You have two choices. You can either make a choice between a solar engine, which is the space laser for the Bastiladon, which is awesome, or you have the melee version, which includes the Arc of Sotek. This is the snakes. If you've ever heard of the snakes Bastiladon, that's what they're talking about. I think the choice here between which loadout to go with is pretty clear. There used to be maybe a role for the snakes. Now, I don't think there's a role for Snakes Bastiladon at all. We're gonna look through those and kind of see what they do, what kind of damage output they do. The Solar Engine has a 24-inch range, so we actually did get a little bit more range on that Solar Engine. So once you add in its 5-inch move, you're talking about a 29-inch threat range for shooting this Bastiladon turn 1. That's pretty good because that means you can hit most people have something lined up on the line, so you're going to hit that at 24 inches, and you can generally hit their backline stuff, their heroes, with this, because they're going to be within 29 inches generally, unless they know what they're facing. So you can hit a lot of targets with this. It's quite versatile in where it can go. Its attacks, it starts off with 9 attacks on this, which I love. The old Bastiladon, you had to roll for it to determine how many attacks it would happen, and to me, I don't know about y'all, but to me, I would always end up rolling low when I needed it to be high, and then I would roll high when there was nothing really worthwhile in range. So I'm glad that's kind of been standardized now. I now know at top bracket I've got 9 attacks with this thing, and it's consistent. It hits on 4s and 3s, -1 rend, 2 damage. If we go to the next page that has the abilities, we'll notice that it does have an extra damage, so an extra 1 damage versus Chaos Demons. So make sure you remember that because it can really pump up that damage from that Solar Engine. These Meteoric Javelins, not really worth talking about. You really won't hardly ever do damage with them. It's short range, so don't forget about them if you're in short range, but not really. We're not going to factor that into any stuff. And both variants come with the Bludgeoning Tail for melee. So you will have this added to melee. It's okay. It's not bad. It's few attacks, but it can hit hard in certain situations. But I'm trying not to get my Bastiladon in too much damage. The Arc of Sotek, it does start off with 18 attacks in melee, which sounds awesome. Hits on 4s, but it wounds on a 6-up. So, wow. Terrible wounds. Terrible stat line there. It will, if we look at the abilities, that the snakes on an unmodified hit roll of 6, it does a mortal wound. Now it stops the sequence, which is kind of a bummer. So not a very good stat line. I think maybe if it had been like 3s and 3s, -1 rend, 1 damage, maybe this would be worth taking as a melee unit. And if it did the mortals in addition to. But if we look at just the damage from the Bastiladon snakes, it's pretty terrible. This is what I ran. All 18 attacks, it does 3 damage, 3.5 damage versus a 4-up save. And most of that's coming from mortals. Statistically, 3 of that's coming from mortals. Half of another wound is coming from all the other attacks. You can bump it up a little bit. I got it up to 6.13 damage versus a 4-up save. But I'm putting a +1 to hit from a Skink Priest, rerolling hit rolls of 1, either from a spell or a command point, and the Star Priest doing some mortals on the wounds. Still, that's terrible, and you're investing 2 heroes and 2 command points. So there might be situations where you can make this work. I don't think the Bastiladons with snakes is viable in pretty much any build. Yeah, you can make it, kind of okay, but in every situation, I would take the solar engine over it, because you'll be able to shoot with it, and there's ways that you can shoot and still charge. If you're wanting to throw this Bastiladon into melee to kind of clog up a unit, I would still take the solar engine over the snakes. So let's look at what the damage for the solar engine can do here. So our average damage for just one Bastiladon, shooting on 4s and 3s, those 9 attacks, is 4 damage versus a 4-up save. So it's not really that impressive. Versus a Chaos Demon, it's 6, so we do get a little bit of a bump there. It's not a ton of damage you're going to be expecting from this thing, and I think that's fine. It's 220 points for a Bastiladon, but its damage output isn't that impressive. It is really more of a tank. That 1-up save, it's going to be sticking around a little while, and you're going to be plinking this damage from long distance. One thing you need to recognize, though, is this is not a hero sniping unit here, because with Lookout Sir, that -1 to hit, because the Bastiladon hits on a 4-up, you're going to lose a lot of damage here. Now we're going down to 2.6, so you're not going to be taking out a lot of heroes with this. Those support characters, you might be able to finish something off if Crocus has hit one with his board-wide comment. So that's not really their role, but there may be ways to get around that. I think in general, there's probably 2 ways to field a Bastiladon. I think a support piece in any Seraphon subfaction, it can work pretty well. And by that I mean, if you're doing Fangs of Sotek, where you have a ton of skinks and small heroes that aren't very durable, you need maybe a monster on the table, something that has some lasting ability, that's tough. Maybe you put this in there. It can put out 4 damage per turn in any subfaction, and so it does have a role there. It's fairly cheap at only 220 points, and so I think it can be a support piece in most of the other factions. I don't think you'll ever see him focused in any other factions, though, because Thunderlizard just makes it so much better. In Thunderlizard, you can double fire your Bastiladons. That's the command ability in Thunderlizards, is that you get to fire your Bastiladons again. It does cost a command point, but as you know, Seraphon has a lot of ways to generate command points. So in Thunderlizard subfaction, Bastiladons get +2 to their wound characteristics, so now they have 10 wounds, and you still have that 1-up save. You get -1 to their damage taken, so all of a sudden you've just made them tougher 2 different ways, and you spend a command point to shoot them again. So this subfaction here, I think, is where you're going to play your Bastiladons, in Thunderlizard. That's where you want to put these guys, because they become tougher and they become more damaging. So let's look at shooting twice. I think obviously the math is pretty easy on that. We double the math. So they are going to be doing 8 damage now on versus a 4-up save, and versus Chaos Demons, they're doing 12 damage versus a 4-up save. So if you do come across Chaos Demons, it's going to be a good game. So you are spending a command point to get that. So keep that in mind. You are going to be spending a lot of command points with these guys. But now all of a sudden 8 damage from 29 inches away becomes a lot better. You're going to be taking out those elite units. You're going to be taking out maybe some monsters that don't get Lookout Sir. You can put quite a bit of damage onto them with these guys. You can buff these. So we take our generic buffs here. +1 to hit from Skink Priest. Reroll hit rolls of 1 from either a command point, the Star Priest, Burning Head. You can add to that, and it'll go up a good 4 damage, so from 8 to 12. So it does help, that, especially that +1 to the Skink Priest. But that costs a command point, and rerolls hit rolls to 1 costs a command point or a spell from the Star Priest. I think there are better ways to use that resource, especially with the command points, because you're going to be burning through those a lot. But I do love the Burning Head spell. So my preferred loadout for these guys is 2 Bastiladons and Thunderlizards, and we're going to reroll hit rolls of 1 from the Bound Buring Head, which is a great spell in Thunderlizards with these Bastiladons. And I'm going to spend 2 command points to fire both of them twice. And now we're looking at, 18, almost 19 damage versus a 4-up save. And if you are lucky enough to go up against Chaos Demons, that's 28 damage versus a 4-up save. So this is, I've played this loadout before and deleted, 3 or 4 greater unclean ones throughout the game. So that was pretty sweet. So when you're talking, almost 20 damage from 29 inches in your shooting phase, it gets to be pretty awesome. This is we've increased the damage here for these Bastiladons and really made them hit a lot harder. You can take them in a battalion. The Thunderquake Temple Host has a battalion, and you all, if you've ever played Bastiladons before, you remember Thunderquake and that you got to reroll saves, reroll hits. That was an awesome battalion. You can still take that same battalion, an Engine of the Gods, and 2 Bastiladons, and either Cruxagore or Salamanders or Razordons. But I don't think it's quite as useful here. So in Thunderquake, you can either be Swift or Savage. You choose that. And you can run and still shoot or charge. Or you can decide you get an extra attack in melee. These guys, you're not going to be using these Bastiladons in melee. So I'm not going that way. The only way I'd take them would be Swift. And now you can run and shoot or charge. Well, I'm not going to charge. Now I can run and shoot. So it increases their range. Instead of now 29-inch range, you have a possible 35-inch range. But it's just not quite as useful. I think Thunderquake is, that battalion right there is made for the Stegodons. And so it's good for Bastiladons, but I don't think it's necessary. I think you can get that same effect with maybe a Skink Priest. That only costs you 70 points, and you can get run and shoot. And I have found that at 29 inches, I'm able to usually hit something every turn, and I don't need the run and shoot with these guys. So maybe some sample lists here. I kind of like this list here. This is one I've run before. And that I've got an Engine of the Gods as my general. This is in Thunderquake. Coalesced in Thunderquake. So Engine of the Gods, I'm giving him my Prime War Beast, so he gets the +1 to his melee attacks. And Fusel of Conflagration, you have to take that one, but it gives him some range threat. Lord Croak, and you'll notice I've got 2 units of Source Guard, as well as the Astrolith Bearer and the Balewind Vortex, and that's the Croak Power Tower there, the Croak Loadout, and so we have that fully functional there. And I have a Skink Star Priest and a Skink Priest, and I'm gonna pair these up with my Skinks, my 40 Skinks there. So I've got a horde of Skinks. And then I've got 2 Bastiladons, both with solar engines, and some endless spells. The Burning Head, Bound Geminids, which is just awesome, Balewind Vortex, and an extra command point. I do want that extra command point because I'm going to be spending a lot of command points. In this list, I think you kind of have 3 unique groups. So I think you can take your Engine of the Gods and your 2 Bastiladons. So they need a hero near them to fire off twice. And the Engine of the Gods can do that. In fact, the Engine of the Gods is a great pairing with those Bastiladons because he can heal them up. And if they're really damaged, you can even fire the Engine of the Gods twice and heal them up twice. And so I am looking to spend 3 command points a turn, 1 on each Bastiladon and 1 on the Engine of the Gods, if I have them. I'll probably prioritize the Bastiladons over the Engine of the Gods for shooting. So I definitely want 2 command points per turn to spend on those guys. Engine of the Gods can actually summon you in Source Warriors as well, so keep him within 12 of Croak to make sure you can try for those summons. That gives you a chance for extra bodies in Coalesced, which doesn't have summoning like Starborn does. So that's kind of one wing, is my Engine of the Gods and 2 Bastiladons. That's a pretty nasty one because it's going to be pushing out a lot of damage. And I'm hoping to get Burning Head over in between those Bastiladons. Maybe turn 1, probably turn 2 is where I'll put that one in. My other group is, of course, Croak and the Source Guard and the Astrolith Bear. That's kind of I'll probably be playing that in the middle of the board to where he can push out his bubble board wide and cause mortals. And then my third kind of wing would be the Skink Star Priest, Skink Priest, and Skinks. And we all know how well those work. You can in this list, you're going to be hitting with Croak Mortals turn 1. You're probably going to be hitting with Bound Gymnids turn 1. And you can hit these Bastiladons into their line turn 1. And so it's actually, weirdly enough, it's a pretty hard-hitting army turn 1 without even committing very far up the board. So if they give you turn 1, which they probably will because you have a lot of drops here, you can hit a lot of their stuff up front, clear their screens, start clearing their bodies, take out a couple of big key pieces there, and you're not going to be going too far up. You can even hit with these skinks turn 1 if they get run and shoot. So it's a pretty nice little army there. So I like that one. This is one I've played before and had some good success with. If you really want to double down on Bastiladons, you can. You could run 4 of them if you wanted to. Here's a list with 4 Bastiladons. So again, we're doing Thunderlizards. We do need a lot of command points. You probably won't be able to spend 4 command points every turn with this list, so you'll have to prioritize that. But we do have our Engine of the Gods. Again, I think he's worth it, taking it with these Bastiladons to heal them back up so they can get back up to their 1-up save. He's also a decent target for that Prime War Beast as well. So, Engine of the Gods plus 4 Bastiladons, and we can still take our Lord Croak, Source Astrolith Bear, and our Source Guard as our battle line. So you've got basically 2 giant groups here. One that they will not want to touch at all with the Bastiladons, and another one they're not going to want to touch at all because they're not going to be able to kill Lord Croak, and he'll just blow them back up off the table if they get within range of his mortals. So a pretty fun little list there. If you happen to have 4 Bastiladons, I only have 3, but that could be fun. So there's my 2 lists there. Our Bastiladon, I think we're able to get him up shooting pretty hard. There's my preferred loadout. I think that is kind of the optimum number of points and invested into this list. 2 Bastiladons and Thunderlizard and Burning Head. So you're talking 200, 400, and I guess that's about 500 points total. So 220 for each Bastiladon and then 40 points for the Bound Burning Head. So, yeah, so it's 480, I guess is what it is. Pretty good point cost there, and especially if you can come up against Chaos Demons and cause almost 30 damage every turn that you're shooting these guys off. So, on paper, they don't look very good, but I think once you put them in Thunderlizards and give them a couple little buffs here and spend a couple command points, you can get these guys hitting pretty hard. All right, that's Bastiladon's output damage for this one. Let me know what y'all's lists are for Thunderlizard and Bastiladons. I love Thunderlizards, so I run that all the time. So I need some more lists. Give me some lists. All right, guys. Catch y'all later.